Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Clayton and James Show, which this week we're bringing to you on a Friday because Clayton went to Italy for 3 days to see his team lose again. My name is James. How are you, Clates?
Ciao Bella, I'm good. Thanks for that nice little setup there.
It's all right, mate. We will be talking Clayton's trip to Milan. We'll also be talking Manchester City. And in a crisis, they've lost 3 games in a row for the first time for 6 years. We've got the usual on this day. We're talking Noah's Ark for European focus this week. We're going to talk a little bit about our FPL plans for Game Week 11 as it is Friday, but we will kick off with a little brief review of the Monday Night Football. Did you watch it, Clates?
I'm gonna be honest and say no. I had it on, but it was on in the background because I was packing for my trip. So yeah, I had it on in the background, but I turned it off before the 90th minute. So I basically missed the best part of the game, I think.
Okay, yeah, basically you did. I don't want to talk about Brentford too much because obviously Tom Med was on Clash of Correspondence yesterday. It was obviously really disappointed with Monday night. A, how they played, but it very easily could have led to a 1-0 victory. Um, B, obviously the outcome at the end is properly depressing to concede 2 goals in injury time against what is considered a rival, as we said previously, Clay. It's a League One rivalry, basically, as we discussed on Monday. Brentford scored a great goal through Vitaly Janelt from long distance. Within an hour of Jamie Carragher highlighting that they don't shoot from long range.
What was this about? I saw a lot of like mini clips doing the rounds on socials, but I've not actually watched any of them.
Jamie Carragher did a piece on Monday Night Football about Brentford kind of taking the extra pass to increase their XG probability from chances. And it's interesting because I'm watching it, I'm thinking, no disrespect, the way he presented it was fine, but I was thinking, oh, we know this.
Yeah, I was gonna say, isn't that just common sense? Like the closer you are to goal, the
Yeah,
more
it
likely
is,
you are to
but
score.
we live in our bubble, right? So a lot of people don't get it with like XG and stuff like that. In our community, we obviously do. And it's interesting, Sky posted a video of his analysis, and I read through the replies,
What was the
and it
verdict?
blow your mind, mate. How people, what is this? I don't understand this. Da, 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 da,
Oh
da. That was
wow.
what the majority of the replies were. What is this nonsense? And I think it was quite a very simplified explanation of you're in
All
a
right, I'll
better
go check it
position, your
out.
XG probability would be better. Most people, it's judging by the replies, most people just didn't get it.
Okay, yeah, I'll have to go check that out
And
then.
I'd imagine everybody I know would go, okay, yeah, thanks, Jamie. I know this. That's
Well, yeah,
great.
the
Brilliant.
way you just described that to me was like, yeah, if you're closer to goal, the probability of you scoring is going to be higher.
So they did that piece. They interviewed Thomas Frank, and he's like, yeah, yeah, yeah. And then Yannick goes, wow, bam, weldy.
Yeah, great goal.
Just to blow it out. Fulham had started quite well, and Fulham dominated basically the whole rest of the game. Now, Brentford offered nothing offensively. Ironically, Carvalho had come on against his former club, had a great chance in between the two Fulham goals. Otherwise, they offered nothing. Bumo, Vissa was quiet. I actually thought Lewis Potter was probably the best of Brentford's front three on the evening. And although Fulham dominated all of it, and obviously Fleckham made a load of saves, none of them were great, as in like, oh my God, he's pulled off a worldie there, or oh, that was such a close miss for Fulham. They dominated without really hurting.
Sure.
And it looked like they were going to kind of run out of ideas. I mean, Marcus Silva hasn't used Harry Wilson much, brought him on. He played Reece Nelson instead of Adama Traore. I think there was an idea to try and get Nelson and Iwobi more into pockets,
Because I
which was
think
part.
did Iwobi go on the right and Nelson started
Yeah.
on the left? Yeah.
Yeah, I think it was an idea to get them in the pockets, which obviously for Adama Traore is not quite as comfortable. He's just hold the touchline and attack your man kind of thing. So I think that was a strategic move, maybe because they thought they'd have more of the ball. But then actually when the equalizer came, although you couldn't say it wasn't deserved, I think if Brentford had won 1-0, you'd have gone afterwards. Yeah, well, they had a lot of it, but it didn't really hurt them. But it,
Sounds a bit like Arsenal games, like
but
kind of a lot of the
what boring.
possession, a lot of the kind of possession and dominating without necessarily creating the clear chances.
Yeah, there was certainly elements of that. If Brentford had won 1-0, that's what you said. You said, oh, Fulham had all of it. But it countered everything I've been saying about Brentford, about they're evolving, become really entertaining. This was back to the idea with Brentford. It's like, oh my God, don't concede first to them.
Yeah.
They're a nightmare to play against. This felt more like a back to that. So there's a possibility that he's had enough of how open they've been. It's something maybe to watch. But I also think it's possibly a consequence of that's now the fifth away game in a row. And they've had tough away games prior. They played my team, Man City, Man United, and
The
there's one
fourth
more
one's
that's
escaped me.
escaping me, but it was another Liverpool they lost. Other than the Liverpool game, they now scored first in all the other away games and lost.
Yeah, so
We
maybe
obviously
that
lost
was
at
in this.
Liverpool as well. So it's possibly a consequence of scoring early and going, okay, well, we've left ourselves a bit open against some good teams here. And Fulham are a decent football side. Like I've done some analysis for our advanced tier patrons on Talking Tactics yesterday. They're seventh for possession. They keep the ball quite well. They like to overload in the wide areas. They destroyed my team doing that in March with like outnumbering us in wide areas. They kind of attack in threes in wide areas where they can. They switch to play from side to side quite quickly, which they can do better now that Joachim Anderson plays for them because he can do the diagonal from centre back and get them moving really quickly. Good side, difficult side to play against. But as soon as they equalised, I said on Slack to our patrons, I think they'll score again.
Really?
Yeah, it felt like that.
Was it like a big momentum shifter or
Yeah, it was
something?
one
Or?
of them where they had a lot of it, a lot of it, and the goal did have a fortuitous element, right? I don't think it's one of them where if you genuinely think Wilson meant it, it's one of the goals of the season. I'm not convinced he does. It's a great
Okay.
flick to help it on, but then it loops over Flecken's head. He's got no chance and drops in and the back corner. And it felt like that, yeah, momentum. And then Brentford suddenly went and attacked, left themselves open on transition. Robinson gets on the overlap, and Wilson, he's probably, I don't want to head this, but he's obviously on a high having
Yeah, it
just
was like
scored
such an awkward
and he
height,
tries
wasn't
to
it?
head it to the back post, and it does Flecken completely because he fucks it, and it hits his shoulder and comes back in the near post, and then obviously limbs, isn't it? To which Dimitar Berbatov suggested that maybe babies would be getting made
I
in
saw
West
that.
London on Monday night. Consistent team Fulham and difficult to play against. I think there is a fantasy element of that for people to take away because there's weeks coming up between now and Christmas where they go to my team in 13, they go to Anfield one week, they go to Stamford Bridge. And the captaincy never feels right against them, I don't think.
No, yeah, I
They're
agree with
not a
that.
team you target for that.
No, yeah, not at all.
Brentford still feel like that. And as per yesterday's Clash of Correspondence, which I recommend people have a listen to for more on Bumo, Semenyo, Evan Nilsson, Vissard, some of the defensive players laughing at Flecken, Milos Kerkez, Sepp Vandenberg. It's a good podcast, but we expect goals in that game tomorrow.
Yeah, it would be interesting to keep an eye on it because, yeah, you said this season Brentford have been open, but if this was just a one-off in terms of how they've adapted, or like in the upcoming fixtures, there aren't players that I think you loan where you'll be looking to captain against Brentford just because of the way the fixtures line up. So it's kind of nice we'll be able to get a look at them in the next few weeks, see if that's something that does change or if it goes back to how it's been.
And Bournemouth now fixtures get good. That's part why we had Neil Grover on Clash of Correspondence this week. I will spoil one stat from that podcast, which
Go
is
for it.
remarkable to leads to a conversation about what can Bournemouth achieve this season. Over the last 38 league games, we've got 60 points. They
Wow.
would be
Where
sixth.
would that put? I was just going to ask that. Yeah. Fair
That's
play.
38 games, mate.
Oh, so on Monday, when I said they could be eyeing up a European spot, they could indeed.
Maybe so. You won't have heard Clash of Correspondence because you were in the San Siro, which also means you won't have heard me have a little bit of a rant on my Ask James stream Wednesday about how football fans are treated away from home in Europe.
Oh, mate, it was awful. I've heard, so this was my fourth European trip with Arsenal, and one was in the Europa League against Sporting Lisbon. So I think the kind of police stuff was calmed down a little bit in that one. The other two were PSV, Bayern Munich, and to be fair, like the police were fine in those ones. This was absolutely awful, and I think I've heard a lot around it, specifically in Italy. Like a couple of my mates went to Atalanta, and they said that. I've heard from you before about your experience in Milan. Heard from other Arsenal fans, but it was genuinely so over the top, and like English fans abroad get a bad name, right? And I'm not gonna lie, I can kind of understand why sometimes, but I do think there's an element of if you treat people a certain way, they're going to react back a certain way. And like the vibes were generally fine. Like so there was an alcohol ban in the stadium, I believe. And in certain
We had that
pub
when I went there when we played Milan 2 years ago.
sure. So there was one bar pub on the area is called Navigli, and it's like a really nice area, like you'll know it, where all the bars are. It's by the river and stuff. And there was one bar in particular that kind of became like the Arsenal supporters' meeting point. So everyone was kind of day drinking there, and the vibes were fine. Like no aggressiveness, nothing. Uh,
Is
left at
that
like
kind of a big roundabout?
no, it's
No, I ended up somewhere very different last time I went to
oh
Milan. I
okay,
think
oh
there was
fair enough.
Tottenham everywhere.
Okay, fair play. You know, this was just like there's a really nice like river canal area. But anyway, everyone's drinking there and I so for the Arsenal tickets, they wanted to check names versus passports and all of that. So I said to my mates like it's gonna be long. Let's go in and get there early for that one. They decided they wanted to go for a sit down dinner at like 7 o'clock. The game was obviously kicking off 9 p.m. local time.
That's a bad move.
Yeah, so I ditched them. So I'm
Well done.
yeah, so
I'm not even joking.
I knew
I
my
could almost tell you now you would have missed kickoff.
but they did. So I knew my cousin was going to be there, so I just went and met him in the ground. But anyway, got there early and left this bar, right? And intending to get on the metro, and there's just a barricade of police shutting off the metro with their shields, their batons, and like they're not smiling at you. Let me just say that. And yeah, like I said, this was 7 o'clock. Like, was sorry, no, I'm lying. It was half 6 because I wanted to get to the stadium for 7 for when it opened. So plenty of time, and they're not
So
even let.
kickoff local time was 9 for clarity. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
And so yeah, it was half hour from where I was to get to the stadium. I thought if I get there for 7, that's plenty of time. And yeah, they just completely locked us off from getting into the metro. I think we were stood there for about 45 minutes, no communication, just literally stood there. And then it piles up, right? I was like one of the first in the line. But you're looking back and it's going back ages and like people are you got little kids there, you got older people and stuff, and then eventually they let you onto the metro and they basically forced a police escort from that area, which was half an hour away on the metro, all the way to the San Siro. We get to the San Siro and you can see it multiple times. It's like, okay, we go left and they're taking us right. And I tracked my steps, right?
Taking you around the world.
Yeah, they literally took us on a journey and it was just like yeah, lack of communication and that I know that doesn't sound bad so far, but like it's then when you get there as well and the kind of aggressiveness on like if you dare kind of not follow a single step and how they are to you. So that was all pre-game, which was a nightmare. Get there. So I got into the stadium at half 8, so half hour till kickoff.
No
Uh,
way.
yeah, and that was yeah, so like took me 2 hours to get there. Um, yeah, like I said, my friends didn't even make it in for kickoff. So some of the other people who would have kind of left at a normal time, I don't know what they would have done. And you could tell, like the away end, there were pockets of empty seats until half time, and then more people started coming in and stuff. But after the game, even that was a disgrace. Like we knew we would be kept in anyway, so like fair play, they communicated that. But then the spiral stairs, right?
It's
Like,
amazing though, isn't
oh
it?
my God.
It's got to be done. That
Yeah.
spiral staircase at San Siro is so iconic.
That was like the Hunger Games when you're going up there, you just see people dropping off like flies, and you get to like the sixth level, the eighth level. Like, yeah, it's like survival
Every
of the fit.
time you go round, you can't you when you're doing it, unless you look at the other towers, you've got no perspective of how far you've got to go. And
Yeah,
every time you go around, you think, must be this one, must be this one.
yeah, it is quite cool to be fair. And like
That's brilliant.
the surrounding area, I personally don't think is that nice, but the stadium when you kind of get there, it's just yeah, like for me, it's
Yeah,
always been a
it blows your mind when you see the San Siro outside, I
yeah,
think.
it's one of them. Like growing up, that was like I've got a handful of bucket list stadiums I've wanted to visit. This was one of them. I went for the Milan Derby a couple of years ago, but like seeing your own club there is something different. So anyway, yeah, get there, see it. It's amazing. But yeah, coming back out after the game, I don't know what they did, but they locked it off and there was just like a big barricade of people stuck in some of the spirals and I genuinely could see a couple of kids getting like squashed and stuff and like again older people that are a bit more like fragile and stuff it was quite concerning at one point like I was fine but like I'm kind of a bit younger and stuff right so yeah it was genuinely awful and I think you hear the phrase like they treat humans like cattle that is genuinely what came to mind in that it was yeah, really badly organized from them.
Yeah, I have to say, when I went, I didn't have big problems when I went a couple of years ago. The usual kind of frustrating nonsense, both entering the ground and both getting out. I do particularly accept after the game the holding you in to kind of clear the area so you don't kind of walk into it and it's difficult for the police to manage afterwards. I kind of accept that and it's just as it is away from home. I don't mind that. Although their organisation around the metro there is disgusting.
It's so poor.
They basically had like 4 or 5 thousand Tottenham fans basically trying to get in one narrow passage to get into the metro station after the game.
It was the
Like
same with
that's
this.
so dangerous.
Yeah, I just jumped on a tram in the end.
We did that the first time I went when Bell scored the hat trick in
Right.
2010. Ended up going back on a tram back to the city actually. I didn't have big problems there, but I heard that others that did. I found both times I went there that it's one of them. You should never feel like this at football, but it's like they're waiting for you to take a misstep.
That's exactly how it felt.
That's, and I'm talking about the police out there.
Yep.
They want it to go. They want
Yep.
it to go. That's how it feels. You feel like you couldn't have a conversation. It's not one of, you would not fucking banter with a police officer out there, mate.
We were
No
bantering with
way.
one actually, because there was one that he
Well,
was
good luck to you.
well, he was really unfit. He was like this. He was running with us having a stitch, and we were
Oh,
like, "What's going on there?"
oh, you shouldn't have done that. It shouldn't feel like that when you go to football. This is the point. It shouldn't. It shouldn't feel like that. And unfortunately, nearly everywhere I've gone in Europe, it has felt like that. It doesn't in Germany, by the way.
No, yeah, Germany's great to go to.
No. Interesting. Yeah, I mean, San Siro is the only one I've done in Italy. So, I'm not saying that it's like that everywhere, but you said there's reports that Atalanta was a bit of a pain in the arse
Yep.
as well. Here, there's some problems when Tottenham went to Turin 6, 7 years ago as well. England fans had massive problems in Naples when Harry Kane broke England's goal scoring record. A lot of them gave up getting in the ground.
Really?
Yeah, because of how the
Wow.
police were treating them outside. Yeah, just
Yeah, it's
literally give up on it.
I think the thing that blew my mind was like I literally left the area at 6:30 to try get to the game, and it was with the intention of trying to avoid that whole police escort because I knew that would just
Yeah,
add an hour on.
yeah,
But like how early they were there, it was mind blowing. And yeah, for me the worst thing about it was at the end. Like I understand the keeping us in the stadium, but then when they let us out and started making our way down the spiral stairs, I don't know what happened where they caused us to be stuck in those spiral stairs for a section of time. That was the bit where I was like, what are you doing? Like, just keep us in the stadium or let us out. Don't kind
yeah,
of
yeah,
keep us
yeah.
blocked in
Yeah,
there.
don't keep in a confined space like that. At least in the
Yeah,
stadium, you can get up and walk around if you want
exactly.
and stuff.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. How did you play? I didn't watch the game.
Oh, fair enough. Some similarities to the last few weeks, but then if I'm being honest, some encouraging signs from me personally, but I feel like I'm on my own there. So first half was classic, like very toothless. Inter
You
hit
say
the
classic. That's a bit concerning, Clates.
It is, yeah, I'll speak about that in a second. But Odegaard's back now, and I think the concern is like the single point of failure thing. But yeah, Dumfries hit the bar in like the first minute or two, and I was thinking, oh dear, this is going to be a long night. But then to be honest, I think if this result hadn't fallen in the middle of the other results, people would be feeling very different because the actual performance in the first half defensively was fine. Like offensively, we looked toothless. Like it was genuinely, wow, we look so null and void of ideas going forward. And Arsenal defensively, I think you always associate as being quite compact, hard to play through. There were a couple of moments, but they were playing through us fairly easily. Like Marino again looked a yard off the pace, like doesn't really get to the area he needs to be in times, always a second behind it. So first half I was concerned. Second half, I don't know if it was enforced or tactical, but Marino came off. Jesus came on. Havertz went played that kind of left eight area, and then Jesus Trossard were up top. And the second half was a lot better in my opinion. Again, it wasn't necessarily like clear chances, but Gabriel had a header cleared off the line. Saliba had. I've not actually watched the highlights back, so I'm just going off memory in the ground where views may be distorted. But from memory, Saliba had a chance. Havertz had a really good one where I think it was Jesus or Trossard put a cross in, and the ball kind of fell to Havertz. But he's done this before. I remember it was like the home game against Man United last season where he was in that run where he was struggling. he doesn't tend to like compose himself and just take a second. He like kind of lashes at it, and I mean he actually caught it sweetly. But I feel like if he calmed himself down for like half a second, he could have placed it. And I don't know who the Inter defender was, but it kind of went off his thigh, went side of the post. They obviously got their goal just before half time, which timing wise was annoying. But it was a penalty. And second half, I thought there were more encouraging signs. I've not checked the stats, but I feel like we created slightly more chances, but it's more like that is me uh trying to take positives out of a concerning situation. Like the creativity at Arsenal is a
You just
problem.
spoke for
It's
2 minutes, but basically was shit.
no, I don't think we were shit. No.
I
Um
mean, you were saying you haven't watched the highlights, but I was thinking once was enough, wasn't it?
no, genuinely, I second half, I thought it was very encouraging, to be honest.
They're a
Um
very good team.
yeah, they are.
Into that is obviously.
Yeah, no, they are. And again, I do think it's one of them. If the result had fallen in a different period, people would be assessing the game very differently. Like I've seen a lot of people trying to draw a parallel between the Newcastle game and this game, and like they're entirely different in my opinion. Like
Why?
because Arsenal created chances in this game. Like again, let me try to find the stats. I'm
I mean,
sure.
Declan Rice missed a massive chance at the end of the Newcastle game.
Yeah,
So
but like that was 90th minute in this game. Like second half, you could feel the momentum shift. Like we were kind of attacking a little, and I'm not saying it was free flowing at all, but it was better than Saturday in my opinion. Which yeah, I don't know if I'm on my own in that one, but that's how I personally kind of received it. It's tricky with this format because even though we lost it in terms of the target of that top eight, it doesn't feel completely out of reach, and so therefore the result doesn't feel like
you
entirely.
just lost your toughest game.
Yeah, so
Same
we
happened to my team last night.
yeah, and
Whatever on it.
there's 4 games to go. But I think for me it's more the kind of yeah, I think if Arsenal play similarly to how they did against Inter on Sunday, I feel more encouraged. If it's a repeat of the Newcastle performance, I think we'll get beat. So that's why I do think there were differences there that can be encouraging, but the result is what people kind of read and take it away from it, right?
Confidence for Sunday.
I don't think Rice will make it because apparently it's a broken toe, and I don't know. Can you play with
I
a
just think from experience of what's happened with Isak recently, it's like don't play
Yeah,
if it is a broken toe.
yeah, and Odegaard only came on for like I want to say it was two,
5 minutes,
three.
wasn't
Oh,
it?
was it
Came off.
5 minutes?
I think
Yeah, I
so,
can't
yeah.
remember the exact time, so I don't think he's ready to start. So yeah, I not great right now to be honest. I think the while there were encouraging signs, I think it took us kind of going a goal behind, making a proactive change with Marino and Jesus. Yeah, I think we'll fall just short on Sunday again, which is yeah, not great in terms of the potential points gap to Liverpool, who are flying at the minute, and then the other team, Man City, which we'll talk about in a second as well. But I think it's one of them with Arsenal, like it's all context, right? Like, yeah, sure, things aren't looking great offensively, and like there is a potential concern there, but how much of that is Odegaard? How much of that is just kind of deeper rooted structural things? I'm not sure. So if we can kind of just reset during the international break, come back, try and put together a little run. The one thing I'm confident in is Arsenal's ability to go on a similar run to January earlier in this calendar year if the key people are fit. I think there's a concern there on kind of single points of failure and how Arsenal compete without some of their key players.
Yeah, it's like anybody without key players, right? I mean, that suddenly you take, Salah, Van Dijk, and one of Liverpool's midfielders out or something, talking about a different team, aren't we?
Yeah, but I don't
And
want to use
and
it as an
Liverpool
excuse, but
rotating
yeah,
quite well. I use
they
that as
are.
a segue, obviously. And Liverpool, we're not going to talk about them much now, but they were outstanding against Bayer Leverkusen.
I saw the
Uh,
stats on that one,
I
walloped
did
them.
watch the game.
Yeah.
Well, the first half was a bit of a non-event. I'll talk about it just
Okay.
very briefly. It was a bit of a non-event, and you're looking at Leverkusen, kind of similarly to Inter Milan, I think, a little bit, and going, if you play these, you're going to have a really tough game. So then what Liverpool did in that second half was extremely impressive because it made them look very, very ordinary.
Yeah, and they're not an ordinary team at all.
No, they're not. I mean, I think that was their first away defeat for I don't know how long, 18 months or something, mate.
Wow.
And Liverpool battered them in the end and looked like a step above,
Yeah.
actually. Liverpool in really good shape. They got to just hold on to that momentum as best they can and keep going. They are in the position where they can rotate little things at the moment. Like Diaz played through the middle.
Okay.
Um, he said he did that specifically because he didn't want Darwin Núñez. This is Arne Slot I'm talking about. He didn't want him to play against Jonathan Tah. You know, Jonathan Tah with the physical battery didn't want someone who's going to be kind of nippy and round him like Diaz and give him a different challenge.
No.
So he's obviously doing things tactically, which are
Yeah.
different and innovative as well. They're in a really good position, obviously. But you still need to keep key players fit. Someone will be shouting, but without Allison, they get it. It's going okay. Be back soon. One team who can't fix the injury problem is Manchester City
Yeah. What made you
because
want to bring them
th-
up today?
there's no point talking about this. I said this the other day. There's no point talking about Rodri anymore. We're going to mention Rodri every fucking week. Like,
Yeah.
they've lost 3 games in a row for the first time since 2018. It's worth saying there's 3 defeats in a row in 2018. Um, they were already kind of champions near enough, right? Basically, that was the year obviously they got to 100 points in the Premier League. I think it was to my team in the Champions League. Man United at home, I think they were 2-0 up, I want to say, and lost 3-2, and there was another game. But in terms of relevance to the title race, it didn't matter. And the game against us was like first leg of a quarter final, so it wasn't like disastrous. Um, Actually, no, that's not that year. It was 2019 we beat City, but I think they might have lost the
Okay.
Champions League quarter final first leg or a semi final first leg, something like that. I can't remember. So, okay, City don't normally use 3 games in a row like they've just done, right? The Tottenham game you can write off because Pep told you after the last round he said he didn't care about that competition. Kind of proven, really. I know they picked a half decent team, but he didn't even bring Haaland off the bench, right? So, how bothered was he? Not particularly. In the context of the defeat to Sporting Lisbon, a little bit like just said with your team losing to Inter, my team losing in Turkey last night, lost away from home, lost the game. All right, okay, fine. It's no concern here about City not getting through in the Champions League, is there?
No.
Even though they've still got to go to Juventus and PSG, you'd still be right fancying them to finish top 8, wouldn't you?
Yeah.
Same for your team as well, by the way.
Yeah, I think so.
The defeat at Bournemouth, okay, disappointing. We highlighted the statistic about Bournemouth earlier on. Might want to treat them a little bit more seriously now. And a few of us thought it would come. We just thought it would be the right matchup for them to potentially drop points. There are now 3 difficult league games on the horizon. Brighton away, Tottenham at home, Liverpool away, where you don't want to be losing all those 3 games as well, because then you are in a massive problem. But they won't.
No. Well, no, I don't
They
think
won't
they'll
lose
lose
all
all
three
three.
games,
No.
will they?
No.
Haaland was going to clearly have an XG of 0 against my team in game week 12. Anybody who watched Tottenham last night is going, they might want to think twice about selling him. In any case, I think the reason we're to talk about him is we've seen historically and we know Pep will fix shit.
Yep.
He's done it so many times. Now, this, with the Rodri issue, might be his biggest problem to solve. And I tell you why I think it is. When I look at them at the moment, the way they started the season was basically a 4-1-4-1. Kevin De Bruyne kind of left 10, half space, drifting in between left back and left winger, and building from there. It also alleviates the problem in terms of him having to press with Haaland at the top end. City as a collective being more aggressive. And it's worth saying it worked fine. And Rodri didn't play, for example, at Chelsea opening day.
Yep.
I think they'd possibly get a different result if they were going to Chelsea this weekend now, by the way, because Chelsea are more advanced under what Enzo Maresca is doing. So they started that way. De Bruyne gets injured. Rodri injured. Obviously, De Bruyne coming back is going to make a difference, particularly offensively in terms of their creativity. But I keep thinking, what's the solver for them to stop them conceding chances, conceding chance against everybody? And the clear thing in my mind is to put Bernardo Silva in central midfield.
Okay. Why is that?
Put him in alongside Kovacic
But why him in that area?
because you can play Bernardo Silva anywhere and he'd do the job for you. Pep is so often used him as a go-to, whether he's wanted him or needed him. He's experienced. Could Bernardo Silva play as a single pivot, as a 6, not against a team where you'd be under pressure? You'd move him side to side too much. I saw at Tottenham last week that unfortunately Ilkay Gundogan to me does not look like the player that Manchester City sold. I reflect on his performances for Germany in the summer and thinking about him in that kind of 10 position, almost like false 9 at times. I think, oh my God, you're still so dangerous off the ball. But in terms of sitting and getting manipulated against an
Yeah.
opponent, not great. Really like Mateo Kovacic, good player. On his own, they were better against us when he came on in that position. I just think double pivot, Kovacic, Bernardo, way to go. The problem with that is that then puts City back into the kind of 4-4-2 shape off the ball. It's fine. That's how most teams are defending. But then it's De Bruyne and Haaland as your two. And they get easy to play out against then.
Yeah.
So you have the opposite, in fact. So how he goes about finding the balance between better protection and also not being easy to play against, he's done it before. He's going to find it a real challenge now.
Yeah, I think that's the thing with City, like, because I've kind of earmarked this run starting at Bournemouth, same as you, as one where I see them dropping points. And it's just like there's been warning signs for me for a few weeks where like I've spoken to you countless times about teams just play through them quite easily in periods in game. I'm not saying it's like sustained or anything, but especially in central areas. And that's why like I'm interested in that kind of Bernardo solution because as great as he is on the ball and like he does work very hard off it, I'm not sure that would alleviate the problem of kind of allowing transition through central areas with him and Kovacic there. Yeah, I to be honest, it's one of them. Like you think he always finds a solution, but the problem on this one is a huge task. I'm pretty sure they'll go and sign someone in January. If they don't, then I'm not sure I back him to find a solution with what he's got to the problem of that kind of teams playing through them and the transition ability. Like some of the teams that play the way they get played through sometimes. It's quite scary. Like I think it was the Fulham game where Traore just completely bouldered through him and stuff. And
The tactical level of even mid-table teams now in our league, and I'm still going to group Bournemouth in that at the moment, but the tactical level of managers like Andoni Iraola and Marco Silva at Fulham, for example, I kind of feel like the epitome of the midfield, the kind of middle two, if you will, at the
yeah,
moment. Um, they will prepare in ways to hurt you, defend you, but also hurt you. These sort of teams can expose even a really good team if the components aren't right. You've seen that last weekend with
yeah,
Bournemouth. So City now are in a position, I think, where they are vulnerable in a lot of games. And normally they're probably only vulnerable in probably a quarter of their games.
that's
I
well
think
said.
they're
Yeah,
now vulnerable in like half.
yeah, I
That's where
agree
they're
with
at
that.
the moment. And vulnerable doesn't mean they're going to lose games
No,
necessarily, right? And Pep might find that solution. These next three league games are very important. They might come win them all. They won't lose them all, but I don't think they'll win them all either.
I think it's
Tomorrow's
what
dangerous again.
I don't see them keeping clean sheets in many games. That's I
No,
think
I
where it
agree with
comes
that.
from. And like, yeah, sure, they've got more than enough talent and firepower and quality to go and outscore the opposition. It's just I don't see them keeping many clean sheets.
It is worth saying they obviously have had injury problems as
Of
well,
course, yeah.
particularly like in the wide areas. Doku's not been in and out. Savinho is fine now by the looks of it. Jack Grealish had problems. De Bruyne's obviously been a big miss. They've had issues defensively as well. Get all that back fit and makes a big difference. But City are never going to be the team they want to be this season, or
No,
one, let's say, wanted to be because of the one key player. The chances are Pep will fix it. That's the most likely ending to this story. But he might not fix it enough to win the league this year.
yep. I selfishly hope so, but have to hope Liverpool have a little dip
Well,
somewhere.
that's why at the moment now, with yourselves are obviously having a, let's say, a moment.
Yep,
And so are City. Liverpool fans, you don't have to speak to any Liverpool fan at the moment. They smell the opportunity and they're smelling it now in early November. So it's not like, oh, it's March and there's an opportunity to put the pressure on. They're smelling the opportunity now.
of course, yeah, and
Really,
understandably so.
really couple of big games for Liverpool in a couple of weeks as well. City at home is then followed by Newcastle away and then Everton away. That's Liverpool's week from a Sunday afternoon to a Saturday lunchtime.
Yeah, if they
Might
come through that, then
might define their season that
yeah,
week.
possibly. How many points do you think it will take to win the league this year?
Lower, definitely. I think it less than 90.
Yeah,
Pretty clear on
I
that.
think between like 85
And
and 87.
I'm fairly sure plenty of conversations you and I had last year was like, how can Arsenal get above that? So yeah, I think it'd be less. I wouldn't be surprised if it's sort of around about the 86, 87 level even.
Yep, I think very similar to you
And
on
that
that.
does even possibly give someone outside that fray, if they can suddenly go on like a 6, 7 game winning run, that might be involved.
Absolutely, yeah.
My team is not capable of that consistency, unfortunately. I'll be talking about Tottenham more on our Patreon podcast later today. But I will touch on one thing I did learn from last night, which is one of the weirdest games of football I've ever watched.
Why?
It's just so weird. We got absolutely destroyed.
I'm gonna guess
I
it was like
mean,
a rotated team though,
so
right?
badly destroyed. At 3-1 down with half hour to go, I genuinely contemplated turning it off after Will Lancashire got sent off because they were having a big chance. I'm genuinely saying like every 1-2 minutes over a shot on goal, getting annihilated. And then we went down to 10 men. I think it's going to be 6-7-1 here. This is going to go
Wow.
really. I sat through all of that loss. When we were 5-0 down at Newcastle, I sat through all of it. I genuinely was thinking, this is awful to watch. It's punishment. Felt like self-infliction, mate. We had a player sent off and we brought Dom Solanke on. And I learned that Tottenham with 10 men, as long as Dominic Solanke's one, he's better than any Tottenham 11.
Okay.
We could have got something out of it.
Yeah, he
It's
changed it,
just
did he?
remarkable. We started playing with 10 men. Rodrigo Bentancur had an outstanding second half, particularly. But Dom came on. We had presence. They shit themselves a bit.
Yeah.
Interesting. Dom's a good link to FPL, obviously. Um, I'm
Are you
captaining him
gonna
this
captain
week.
him?
Yeah, he's getting the armband, mate. He's going to get it. You?
Well, I've got Salah. So, although you did say on Monday, if you owned both, you'd still be going Solanke, didn't you?
We'll get onto my team in a bit. What are you
Okay, sure.
doing?
I'm gonna roll. So, I obviously wild carded last week, and yeah, sure, there's a flag on Palmer, but he's there for the long haul. So unless we get news that he's out for a substantial period of time, I'm intending to roll. I think my bench is strong for someone to come in if he doesn't make it, and yeah, I
Go
want
on,
to
read,
try.
read us out your team for the benefit of those on the audio then.
True that. So my lovely, not so lovely double West Ham goalkeepers of Fabianski and Areola. The back three,
One's coming on for the other at half time, I know.
yeah, 100%. Back three of Eight Nori, Dallo, and Pedro Porro. Captain Salah, Palmer, Bumo, Saka, Garnacho. And then up top, Cunha and Solanke. And I've got Raul Jimenez first sub, and then Anderson and Colwell as well.
Uh, Captain,
Mo Salah for me.
you're going
And
to go Salah. Okay,
yeah, I've
that's
got
fine.
Solanke on the vice.
More the question: do you consider playing Jimenez over Saka?
No. No, I just think if Arsenal are gonna score, Saka will probably be central to it. Like the Crystal Palace Fulham game, I see very low scoring. I do think the Chelsea Arsenal one has the potential to have a few goals in it. Q this being the other way around. Q and Desmond in the Fulham Palace one and a 0-0 in Arsenal Chelsea. But no, yeah, I'm not gonna play Jimenez over Saka.
I'd be tempted.
Go on.
I'm
How
just saying,
comes?
I'd be tempted. That's all. I think that's close. I get it. Saka, talisman, be on pens, all those sort of things. I get it. I don't know. Palace got a few injuries, but I do also think at the same time the back three is quite settled now. So I think with Palace you could spin your narrative either way. I mean, Eddie Nketiah's injured now as well, on
Oh,
top
is
of
he?
obviously Eze's out. So we've got a few issues,
Maybe I'll
no
play
doubts.
Anderson then.
Well, he might come into your team anyway.
Uh, who else is out that I've not seen?
I mean, my reaction to that game last night was Pedro Porro won't start on Sunday.
Oh, why? What have I
That was
missed?
played 90 minutes last night. He had to work his bollocks off, mate. And he
Okay,
I'm gonna say hobbled. I don't want people to misinterpret that, but he was clearly feeling it. Let's
sure.
say at the end of the game yesterday, right? Ideally, it would have been get him off the pitch. I think he played fine. I don't know if Jed Spencer's available or not,
Is he
but
the only person
he's
that would
to be
slot
honest
into?
with you, there's two sides to this. He sits at home, should probably be able to play Jed Spence. But if it's Dragishin and Davis again together, then we might need to score 4 or 5 to fucking win on Sunday. Because I mean, Radu Dragishin last time. Problem. Problem. But Ange said Romero might even make it. And if Romero's on the pitch, the other two, whichever way round, it's fine. Personally, I'd probably play Davis over Dragishin because of the opponent. We're going to have a lot of the ball and distribution would be quite important. And Dragishin's distribution is atrocious. Um, so if Romero was available, particularly though, do you think you should just play Jez Spence at right back? Now,
Do you
Archie
think?
Gray played all the game as well, so it'd be counterproductive for it just to be Archie Gray instead of Pedro Porro. And Pedro Porro did have a break against Manchester City last week in midweek.
Sure.
And it's worth saying, I went on our Slack last night onto the Tottenham channel, and all the Tottenham guys on there were pretty much in agreement, no concern about Porro for the weekend. So it's only me that thinks that.
Okay. Right
So
now, if
if
you were
if you
predicting
polled the
that,
guys, they would all say to you, Porro will play. That would be the majority. I'm looking at it and going, not sure he should. But then also, it's bloody international break afterwards, so it's not our problem. Do you know what I mean? It's almost like playing, right? What are you
yeah.
resting him for? The game next midweek? Well, no, we don't have one. That's not our problem. I just think last night became a lot more intense than it probably should have. I mean, for me, we just wouldn't have played last night in the first place. I would have just played a much weaker team. The guys think Porro will play. I'm just telling you now. Don't be surprised if you don't.
Okay.
That's my opinion. And
If he doesn't,
I've got Pedro Porro. What can I do about it? He's Ipswich at home. I'm not
yeah,
doing
you got to
anything
play
about
it.
it.
If he
Exactly.
um if he doesn't start, do you think it? I don't think he's the sort of player that won't get on at all. Like, cause he'll be on the bench, right? If he
Depends
doesn't.
how the game's going and who's playing there, right?
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Yeah,
So like
I
if
just
Jed
think you have to
Spence
play
is
him.
playing there and we're winning 2-0 and it's comfortable or 3-0 and it's comfortable, what are you going to bring Porro on for?
Yeah,
If
true.
it's 1-1, he's probably coming on, isn't he, right?
Okay. No, good to know. I hadn't really seen that anywhere, so yeah, that's good to be aware of.
Um, that's the one that is now maybe the doubt from those that might have had concerns about Tottenham players. So Solanke's come on and played half hour, and he scored a great goal, so you're good to go there. Sonny played 45 minutes. I would read that as positive, not negative. Brennan Johnson also played 45 minutes. From a fantasy perspective, positive rather than negative. Dan Kulusevski played 45 minutes, positive rather than negative. James Maddison, I don't really want to say publicly what I thought of his performance yesterday.
Go on, do it.
I think I've said enough, haven't I?
You said a lot without saying a lot.
Right, my team this week. So, unbust as follows: Fabianski in goal over Raya, Porro, Alexander Arnold, 8 Norrie, Saka, Bumo, vice captain. It just feels like a secure vice captain that I know is going to play. Cole Palmer, Alejandro Garnacho, Ollie Watkins, Nicholas Jackson, Captain Dominic Solanke, Morgan Rogers, Gabriel Wout Fass in return on the bench. Sorry, 2 free transfers, and I think I'm using them, Clates.
Okay.
I think I'm using them to go Saka to Salah, and I need to do that. I'd have 2 options. One is Watkins down to sort of a sub 6 million forward. Don't feel right when I look at next week's fixtures. Or Trent goes now,
Ooh. Do you have a
and
preference?
it's Trent down to a 4.4 or lower. Yeah, clear preference now. It's the name I mentioned a few times this week. And having looked at it a bit more late last night, I think, yeah, that's the right one is Lewis Hall of Newcastle.
Okay. The dream
Uh,
is back on from pre-season.
yeah, we wanted to go there in pre-season. Fabian Schär cocked it up for all of us. Their fixtures up to the winter period are decent. He's 4.3. No one's expecting miracles. But there are a number of fixtures where certainly he'll cover quite nicely. I'm loath to get rid of Trent, but it's not worth it at the moment.
Yeah, I took him out on my wild card.
The biggest reason not to do this is it cuts me off of a player that I want to buy in game week 12, and that's Alexander Isak. That means that can no longer happen unless I take a -4. And should Nicholas Jackson get his inevitable fifth booking of the season on Sunday, I might be taking that inevitable -4 anyway, which would also probably mean moving Pedro Porro on as part of that. So it would probably be moving Porro and Jackson or Solanke under
Wait,
that
so if you
circumstance.
did these moves in terms of taking out Trent and Watkins, would you then
No,
not?
it's just Trent and Saka.
Oh, sorry, Trent and Saka. Yeah. Okay, and then it's next week you'd consider looking at getting Isaac in for one of the
Well, I
others.
wouldn't be able to do it. I'm zero point 0.1 in the bank. So I wouldn't be doing it for free. Obviously,
What's
if I
the price difference between?
it's
Uh,
enough. Isak's 8.3, going to go 8.4.
okay,
Solanke, I bought at 7.5. Jackson's like 7.9. I'm probably going to
yeah,
dip.
yeah. I didn't realize Isaac was in the eights. I don't know why. I thought he was like 7.98
The other
myself.
option is just roll, and it would be good to have 3 free transfers on the other side of the international break. And I may still be making sort of similar sort of moves. Um, but I think I'm going to do it. And yes, I will still captain Solanke over Salah.
Sure. What's your thinking on that out of interest between Solanke, Salah?
Ipswich. It's an Ipswich play rather than a Tottenham play. The attackers, none of the attackers played more than 45 minutes last night in terms of that starting four. Papsar didn't play more than 45. In fact, if you include Papsar and Benson course, it's probably the starting attacking six. None of them played more than 45 minutes last night. It's basically what they all played. So a little bit less. Um, so it shouldn't be too much of a fatigue issue going into Sunday. Ipswich's defensive data is bad.
Yeah,
It's attacking the fixture. No one's saying Mo Salah or Erling Haaland is not a good captaincy option this week. They absolutely are. It's yeah, we're attacking Ipswich here.
sure. Makes
That's it.
sense. Good luck.
That's it. So yeah, we'll go Dom, and do not be surprised if his XG is 0.04. He has no shots, walks away with a 2 pointer, a one yellow card, 1 pointer because he gets booked for dissent or something. He's not that sort of
And
player.
then you're seeing the words defensive
Um,
midfielder on social media.
yeah, and must sell before Manchester City away. Yeah, don't be surprised. If people want to take a Tottenham punt in the midfield area, absolutely clear as day for me, Brennan Johnson. A few people have asked me about Captain Johnson over Solanke. It would be Solanke, very clear for me.
Cool.
Uh, I'm not 100% decided on those moves though, but I think I'm going to do it. I'm going to end up chasing Mo, and I don't want to. I've always had him in reach, and he's in reach, so he's going to go in now.
Yep,
I would
makes
captain
sense.
him in game week 12 as well. The bigger off putter is I probably don't captain him between sort of 13 and 17. But if after Southampton want to dip him back out, I can.
Yeah. Yeah, it gives you that structure then, isn't it? Any concern on kind of Arsenal from game week 12?
What do
Well,
you mean?
yeah, I didn't word that very
As
well
in what?
at
No
all. Like,
offensive.
yeah, because I know you've been speaking
Uh,
about Arsenal's run
concern,
for.
no,
Sure.
at the moment. I might even be eyeing treble Arsenal defence going down the line here, possibly as well.
Brave man. Brave, brave man.
Because it won't be far from, not that I would be able to do it, but because I'd have no money in the bank at this moment, but it wouldn't take much for me to be able to get, say, Porro towards Saliba, and then I'm sitting there with Saliba, Gabriel, and Real.
Yeah, sure.
I don't really want to do that strategy because I'm pretty convinced there will be a stage where I want Saka or Havertz.
Yeah, that's why I'm not
And
going
it
there for
might be
myself.
because of where I am at with these three forwards, Watkins, Solanke, Jackson, as kind of per the conversation we had on Tuesday. Once I do take Saka out, if I do want to dance between having three of them, which brings Isak and then obviously Havertz back to the table, whereas Havertz wasn't on the table under that circumstance. So there are some pros. Do I really want to take Bukayo Saka out? No, not really, Clates.
No, but Arsenal offensively aren't firing on all cylinders, right? But things
I
change
don't
very
fancy him
quickly.
to. It's like last week, I didn't fancy him to return, and I let the Salah and Cunha move go. And it's the first time this season in hindsight, and it is hindsight, obviously, but I thought about it a lot and I regretted it.
Sure.
And do you remember that historical I was telling you about that time with Mo when I triple captained Sadio Mane and then I didn't fix the problem? I was like, oh, let it go.
Yeah, you
I've
just let.
chosen my path and I didn't fix it. And so, yeah,
Look
so
at
that's
you
playing
learning
on.
from your mistakes.
Yeah, well, we all should do, shouldn't we? And listen, it might. I'm taking Saka and Trent out. Let's not pretend the two players I'm selling here might not outscore the two I'm bringing in, right? Because there's a combination, particularly if I'm not captaining Mo, is Salah and Hall that much better than Saka and Trent? I'm actually backing Liverpool for a clean sheet this weekend, by the way, as well.
Okay. Well, yeah, fair play. Good luck. Well done for sticking to your guns.
And yet still playing Ollie Watkins. I haven't decided fully yet. Talk to me about Noah's Ark, mate. Or let's say FC Noah, Clayton.
Well, so a few weeks ago, you and I did a Patreon podcast, right? And it was a quiz, and I can't actually remember the specifics on what it was, but it was around Conference League teams. And was it you gave me a country?
I gave you the team. You had to tell me what country they were from.
That was it. But there was one team in there that you made up. And this team, FC Noah, I could have believed was a made-up team. So I saw everyone referencing them as Noah's Ark on social media, and I genuinely thought they were called Noah's Ark FC. So it was only when I was reading about them and researching on my way back from Italy to England that I realized, yeah, they're actually called FC Noah. They've got to be, I wish I fact-checked this, but they've got to be one of the youngest teams in the competition. They were founded in 2017, originally called, so I should say they're from Armenia. So yeah, 7 years old as a football club. They were founded as FC Artsak. I may have got that pronunciation incorrect. And
Sounded like a position to me.
yeah, they finished eighth in the 18-19 season in their league. They then were sold as a club to someone called Karen Abrahamian. who then rebranded the club FC Noah in
Sounds like
2019.
somebody who might have lost a presidential candidacy in the United States of America. Keep going.
Yeah, it's very true, but I am not going to take us down that rabbit hole on this one. But so yeah, rebranded to FC Noah in 2019, and yeah, like we kind of joke and jest about Noah's Ark, but that is a reference point for them in terms of referencing the Bible. Luis Figo actually had input in their kind of strategy and stuff. Again, I can't really find why or what his role was in that,
There's
but
been a little bit of a Portuguese influence here, definitely, if you
yeah.
read stuff about them.
It has, but yeah, they obviously played last night against Chelsea, and yeah, they did get beaten fairly badly. They lost 8-0, but
Did you notice all the goals came in two by two by two?
the dad jokes are out in force, aren't they? Yeah, so yeah, they lost last night 8-0, but their route to getting to this competition stage has actually been quite impressive, to be fair. So yeah, they're obviously a very young team, but they actually beat AEK Athens on the way to getting there. So they're obviously yeah, very well-known club in Greece, and yeah, it's just quite cool seeing a club that's so young kind of get to a European competition. They've won the Armenian Cup in 2020 before, so
I
they've
mean, that's
got a
only 3 years after being founded, isn't
I
it?
know, so
It's
like
quite
that's actually quite
remarkable.
impressive. But yeah, it's just quite a weird but nice story. Like you don't really hear about clubs like this. Like I'd say this is probably one of the most unique ones I've come across in terms of the clubs. Like all the other ones we've covered, they're kind of very well-known historic clubs with like massive
I
history
mean,
behind them.
particularly with this conference league now, you do see the draw and stuff, and you're like, there's even for us, there's like so many teams I haven't heard of. Well, this is a very legitimate one when they didn't actually exist 7 years ago and actually changed their name 5 years ago
Yeah.
as well. The Noah's Ark story of this is like very prominent. It's not people won't be offended, I don't think, by people calling them Noah's Ark. In fact, one of the Noah team's players said that we're going to go there and park the Ark
Did he
rather
actually? Okay.
than park the bus. He also said that we're going to play our brand of football and we might have to park it on certain stages. They could have gone 1-0 up last night, by the way, but
Oh,
they
really?
were 50-1 to win pre-kickoff against Chelsea's second team. So probably tells you the disparity of quality in the two teams. It's a shame for them. Obviously, they lost 8-0, but they have plans to build a new stadium. They're currently playing a stadium that only holds sort of 3,500. They want to build a stadium that's going to be sort of 15, 20,000, kind of become like a hub for Armenian football. They want to be a club that's going to be at the top of the Armenian game and proudly represents Armenian football going forward. And one of the things you would have to say about the Conference League, which we can all deride, and to be honest, no one really wants to see teams getting slapped 8-0 by Chelsea's second team. As a neutral, you don't want to watch that, right? But it is nice story for clubs like this to, how many times we say with our own pyramid, give clubs the opportunity to achieve glory. Well, for Armenian football as well, not just the club, but for them to play at Chelsea last night was just such a big deal for
Yeah.
the country.
I don't think
Um,
anyone in England would have heard about them before the kind of draw and Chelsea playing them. So
why?
like it puts them on the map, right? It's yeah.
And the story about Noah's Ark now, no one's going to forget it.
No, not at all. I think this is the
It,
thing. Like we
it's
spoke,
generally considered like a symbolism of importance in Armenia.
yeah, and like we've spoken about in the Nations League, right? Like for England, like we don't love it, but for other nations, it's quite important. It gives them a chance to potentially go on and do something. I think it's similar with the Conference League, like you said there, with nice stories, putting some teams on the map and giving them exposure.
Well, the design of this competition really is not to have teams like Chelsea in it.
Yeah, and that was like a very unique set of circumstances where they ended up in there, right?
But the chances are at the moment that every single year, because when West Ham went in it, was it last year West Ham were in it? I think it was.
Uh, mm,
No, year
no, it was
before,
two
wasn't it?
years ago. Yeah,
Yeah. But when West Ham, this is West Ham. When West Ham went in it 2 years ago, they were favourites. And then obviously you had teams could drop down from Europa League. You might get some stronger ones drop down and stuff. Last year, Villa were favourites all the way through. Whichever English team goes in it next year is probably going to be favourites, unless you have a low ranking team in the Premier League who wins the Carabao Cup.
yeah. I
And
can't
if you
actually
look at the
remember who
teams
was.
left in that, that's probably unlikely as well
Yeah,
because there's
exactly.
five big
There's some
hitters
strong teams in there. Yeah.
left in there. But if it was Brentford who won the Carabao Cup, hypothetically, they would be one of the favourites to win the Conference League next year. I don't know if they would be the favourites, but they would be in the top three or four, probably in the betting. So we should remember that this competition, I think, was largely designed for teams like Noah in that more eastern region of Europe to give them a chance of having regular European football and also be able to be competitive in it. It's worth saying, yeah, they lost 8-0 last night. But as you said, they beat AEK Athens to qualify. They're the first team ever to qualify for the group stage, having won all four qualifiers. So they won three qualifiers and the playoff. So they've got to work their way to get there. And they've already got 3 points on the board. They beat Mlada Boleslav from Czech Republic a couple of weeks ago as well. So it's not like on nil point and completely out of the competition or anything. They're competitive. They just got slapped by a reserve team that frankly should walk towards winning this competition. I
And they
see
probably will, yeah.
Gary tweeted again last night. It's like my hotel in Wrocław, where the final is in Poland, booked like months ago,
Yeah,
and
I
it's
saw
not
that.
he's not doing it out of all vainness of we're definitely going to get there. He can cancel the hotel if they don't get there, right? But if you're a Chelsea fan, you probably should look at booking Poland for the final. Yeah.
Yeah. I know. Very cool story.
Uh, so is this one,
Go on.
maybe,
So,
arguably.
obviously, we usually go on Wednesdays, right? So, is this on this day from, what was the date on Wednesday?
No,
The, oh, okay.
someone
You've,
someone asked me if I would do two and do one from November the 6th because they obviously had found something from November the 6th they really wanted and just said
yeah,
no,
I
sorry,
wasn't sure if you were, yeah, if you picked a different one or not. Right.
no.
From
Uh,
November the
uh,
8th.
1992. So you will have no recollection of this, Clayton. So I very much apologise to you. But I think the timing of this section is quite apt as well. In 1992, on a Super Sunday, November the 8th, was the Steel City Derby, which is competed by the two teams in Sheffield United and Wednesday. And I recall it being a big deal because it was the first year, obviously, Sky had the football, and you had a Sunday, it was like the Sheffield Derby. It's like, I ain't seen that before.
Okay.
It's quite exciting.
Yeah,
Let's
yeah.
watch the Sheffield Derby. And back then, obviously, you only had
Two
one
big
game on a
teams as well.
Sunday. And yeah, we shouldn't forget that, particularly Wednesday had a really good team in that period. So they'd, I think, finished third in the league the year before. They'd beat Manchester United in the League Cup final in 1991 as well. Sheffield Wednesday had a good team. They went on to finish seventh that year. And actually, may have even put themselves in contention for the title that previous season, which people forget when Leeds obviously won it ahead of Manchester United. And actually, Leeds basically clinched the title with victory, ironically, at Sheffield United. But had Sheffield United not beat rivals Wednesday home and away in that season, Wednesday would have been quite close. So there was obviously a real keenness and willingness from Wednesday, a superior team on paper, to obviously go to Bramall Lane and avenge the results of the previous two seasons. Sheffield United were an interesting team at that time who had this hallmark of a team that basically looked like it would get twatted in the first 3, 4 months of the season, yet always found a way to stay up. It was either this year or the year after where Dave Bassett, the Sheffield United manager, had their Christmas party in August.
Oh, God. Why was
Well,
that?
the theory behind it was they never started playing until they got the Christmas party out of the way. So they had the Christmas party in August and then started the season pretty well. You may remember, obviously, in this particular season, Sheffield United beating Manchester United on the opening day of the season, Brian Deane scoring the first ever Premier League goal. But I remember this game, and I remember it particularly because of the equalising goal that was scored in this game. So there were highlights knocking about in YouTube, and we'll put something in the bio where you can have a look at something. Two things really stand out. Two terrible tackles. One particularly from David Hurst, which is a yellow card. Now you wouldn't
Oh,
be getting a free game ban, mate. You'd be getting put in front of a panel, mate, and explaining yourself.
really? Go on. Describe it. What was it like?
It's one of them. It's like balls breaking and it's launched. You know, Lissandro Martinez
Yeah.
tackle at Crystal Palace, the two-footed one, right? If you compared that with this David Hurst tackle, the Lissandro Martinez one looks like a shirt pull.
Wow. Okay, yeah, I'm gonna go watch this
It's
on YouTube.
so X-rated, mate. It's one of them. Even watching it then, I was like, he has to get sent off for that,
Did you
even though
say he
it's in
got
the
a yellow
90s.
card?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Was there like a protest or
He
anything, or was
probably got
that?
a bit of the ball, maybe, mate. He's proper launched from distance to the old two-footed one. Mark Bright also got booked for a pretty bad tackle as well. Not as bad as the David Hurst one. It was Hurst who would score the equaliser in this game. Sheffield United went in front in the second half. Corner from their left-hand side, float towards the back post. Brian Dean gets a head on it. And Brian Dean, I think, made his debut for England a few months earlier. And on the line was a lad called Adrian Littlejohn. There was a few players on the line, and Littlejohn was standing pretty much right in line with the post. And as it's come to him, it just flicked off the inside of his instep of his left foot, almost like a back heel, and got into corner. He either meant it or it was really fortuitous,
Yeah.
but it was quite
He'll
cute.
claim he meant it.
It's a very unique goal. You won't have seen many goals like it. He's like standing by the post, and it just happens really quickly, and it just gets in the corner. So Sheffield United get in front. Hoodoo potentially going on here again for Wednesday. They equalise with wasn't long to go, about 5 minutes to go. Just an 84th minute equaliser. And David Hurst played up front with Bright. David Hurst was an exceptional centre forward. Really, really good. Um, Difficult to compare to players, but kind of think like maybe Robbie Fowler. I know Robbie Fowler wasn't long after that, but just that outstanding left foot striking ability
Sure.
is what I mean in terms of the comparison there. Fowler would be easier to remember. Hurst less so because he had so many injuries, mate.
Okay.
And obviously, it's his son, George Hurst, who obviously plays up front for Ipswich now, probably gets the winning goal on Sunday at White Hart Lane. Hopefully not. Hurst was an outstanding finisher. It was quick. He was a good player. He would have played for England quite a bit in that period if he'd not suffered bad injuries. And bear in mind, he would have been competing with people like Shearer and Ian Wright. At that period there, a fully fit David Hurst was competitive with that. He was really
Really?
good. Yeah, honestly,
Oh,
he
wow.
was a really good forward. He picks up the ball. Sheffield United are really deep. He drops off short and he receives the ball about 25 yards from goal, plays it inside to Chris Waddle, who won the Football Writers Player of the Year that year. And Waddle was a magnificent footballer. Had left Tottenham, gone to France and played for Marseille, came back to Wednesday and had a brilliant, brilliant football season. He wasn't the quickest anymore, but his ability to beat a player and deliver was exceptional. Lazy fucker by this point as well, but could he play? So Waddle's got the ball set, and they're scared of him as soon as Waddle gets the ball, right? Don't let him shoot, etc. Don't let him dribble past you. And Hurst has played the pass, and Hurst obviously goes back for the return, and Waddle delays. You know, when you see 1-2s, it's like played and gone, played and
Ye-
gone. Waddle
Yeah.
sits on the ball and waits. And
Pep would
obviously
love
Hurst
that.
Hurst is on the move, going in between a couple of defenders. And Waddle plays this pass so perfectly to him that it arrives in Hurst's stride and he doesn't break stride. He's running onto it, controls it with his left, and you blinked, and with the same foot, he's buried it in the top corner.
Oh,
It's a
nice.
genius, just a beautiful goal. Again, very unique goal. And Wednesday could have won it from there on afterwards. Mark Bright missed a couple of chances. They had such a good midfield Wednesday. Carlton Palmer obviously played regularly for England, much derided, admittedly, but a good player. John Sheridan, who scored the winner in the 91 League Cup final, really good player. Danny Wilson, you might remember, went on to manage Barnsley Wednesday and a few other clubs, was a good player as well. Young Chris Bart Williams was a really good player, the Bart man. They're good players. They all side that game. Really good team. Sheffield United weren't in terms of memorable so much in terms of personnel. I can read these names. You tell me if you remember any of them. Alan Kelly, Cole Bradshaw, Paul Beasley, Brian Gale, Kevin Gage, Tom Cowan, John Gannon, Paul Rogers, Mitch Ward.
I'll be honest, I don't think I know any of them.
No, you wouldn't have. Did you know any of them Wednesday names?
I recognized one of them, but no, I'll be honest, not particularly, no.
They also had Chris Woods in goal, who had been the England goalkeeper up till Euro 92. Which was obviously the summer before this. Roland Nilsson, who was a very experienced right back, would have been part of the Sweden team that beat England in that tournament. Nigel Pearson at centre back, that must
Oh
be a name
yeah.
you know.
Yeah, I know that one, yeah.
Yeah. And Nigel Worthington at left back, you might remember managing Norwich maybe
Yeah, yeah.
as well.
Recognize that name.
They're a good team Wednesday. They finished seventh, got to both cup finals, and lost to yourselves in both of them
Oh,
in the
really?
League Cup final and the FA Cup final. They finished seventh in the league. Interesting a note on that season. Sheffield United stayed up by 3 points. with a +1 goal difference, finishing
Wow.
14th. They won their last three games as well.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Left it to the
I think they only
last
lost
minute.
one of the, yeah, same thing. Great Escape. They were good for this at this period.
Yeah.
They only lost, I think, one of the last eight or so. Beat Chelsea 4-2 on the last day. And admit it was not Chelsea like now, to guarantee safety. Crystal Palace went down on 49 points. Remember, it was a 22 team league.
Oh,
But,
yeah.
but 49 points, if you think about it, 49 points from 42 games, it's quite a lot.
Yeah. That's
West
harsh.
Ham went down on 42 from 38. And we've often had the debate about West Ham and Middlesbrough being the best teams ever to get relegated. Because Middlesbrough, remember, in 90 shit 7 had the 3 points deducted because it didn't
Okay.
turn up and play against Blackburn. So they would have finished on the same, I think, 42 points. But 49 points from 42 is better, isn't it?
I'd
Than
need to work out
42
the
than
points per
42
game.
from 38.
I'd need to crunch the numbers and
It
actually
is,
put
isn't
that
it?
to.
It's got
I
to
think
be.
so, yeah. So are they the best team
So
ever?
are Crystal Palace in 92-93 the best team ever to be relegated from the
Why do you
Premier
think no
League?
one talks about that? Do you think it's just because of like the league format and what we know now?
Yeah, maybe a little bit
When
more.
people
I
say, "Oh,
kind of want to
football
dig into
existed
that
before,"
now.
yeah,
You shouldn't be getting relegated on 49 points from 42 games, probably, shouldn't you?
no, that's mad.
But I can tell you why it happened. Liverpool finished sixth that year on 59 points.
Okay, why was
There's
there
10
such a
points between sixth and 20th, mate.
yeah? Why was that happening? It's just
It's a lot of shit.
yeah,
A lot of teams, but I think Liverpool lost 15 times and finished sixth.
bloody hell.
Again, remember this over 42 games, right? Not 38. So it was a lot of teams just used to beat each other more often. Less consistency I mean, no one's ever going to do that again. Admittedly, it's
No,
obviously not a 22 team league, but the idea now that 18th in the Premier League would finish on 42 points feels like impossible to ever happen again at this moment.
yeah, in this moment, it's hard to picture that.
That's on this day from
Nicely done.
1992. For the Sheffield United and Sheffield Wednesday fans listening, I wish you both the very best of luck for Sunday's derby at Bramall Lane.
That's a great rivalry. I always get wound up when I see people just refer to one of the two teams as just Sheffield. It's like I don't know. There's two big
Oh,
teams there.
Tomo, our Sheffield United correspondent gets so wound up by
Oh,
that,
does
mate.
he? Yeah, I
Yeah.
do as well.
It's it, I think like Nottingham Forest, you can get away with it, but I would never call Nottingham Forest Nottingham.
No,
It's interesting. There isn't another Nottingham. There is a Notts County. You wouldn't call Notts County
you wouldn't say
Nottingham
Nottingham County,
County.
no.
There's only one Tottenham, for example. I get it. It's part of London rather than Nottingham the place or Sheffield the place. But obviously Wednesday went down in what, 2000?
Can't remember what year it was.
We're approaching 25 years since they were in the top division. You couldn't have believed that Wednesday team from 92 would go that long. I've spoken about this a number of times. That's going to be, after I've done Ibrox, that's going to be the biggest stadium in Britain that I've not done.
Oh, you're not been
So,
there, no?
so I want to get them back up to go.
Yeah.
Tottenham haven't played them since 99. I never
No,
went
just
in the
have to hope you
90s.
draw them in a cup.
Every time I'm hoping. I know they beat us, by the way, but I want to go to his Hillsborough would obviously be very historic.
Yeah, I'd love to go as well.
I think
Nicely
Sheffield
done.
Wednesday are about 15th in the table. Sheffield United second could go top this weekend, which would add a little bit of ice into the cake. I wonder if it will be the opposite to 92, where Wednesday was struggling to beat United, but much better. I wonder if this might be the other way around and Wednesday cause a shock at the weekend.
Let's have a little. Might try watch that. Nicely done.
I won't, because I'll be at White Hart Lane cheering on my FPL captain. Fingers crossed. Cheers, Clates. Thanks very much. This is the bit where I normally plug the rest of our week, but I can't do that because it's Friday. For our patrons, intermediate plus tier and above, you've got the differential show later on today. Advanced tier patrons, team news tomorrow at 10 a.m. And for the general YouTube community, the deadline stream will be presented by myself at 12:30 p.m. UK time tomorrow. Just sees me say thanks very much, Clates. Have a nice weekend, everyone. Cue music, please, man child.